Hey guys, this is DFD, aka Dark to Pros and Deaths, back with another Kamihime project video. Now, I know it's been a while, sorry about that. I originally did intend on making a video for the previous event, which was a rerun, but I decided against it after a while, and it ended up, since it ended up being a rerun anyway, I've already done a video on that type of stuff, so it's more or less the same type of thing. Only difference is that there might have been like a Ragnarok Plus fight added, or final break weapons or something like that. But basically that's all I really have to say about that one. It's already been a video that's uploaded, so you could have looked at that. Also, I am kind of slowing down on this game quite a bit too. I don't seem to log into it as often as I used to. It's it's more the fact that it's like I kind of got tired of it, especially with new Takusat screwing up on that. It's not like I quit, but it's still the fact that I'm not playing this as often. And I'm usually playing the JP side more than the new Taku side anyway, so there's that. But I'll still do updates and vids on this, but don't expect too much from the global side now at this point. I've even missed out on posting, I think, two or three heroic fights by now, but and then on top of that, I haven't done anything for heroic record because there's a bunch of heroic fights in there too. But there's still going to be stuff. It's just going to slow down. Unless it's Japanese side, I may or may not slow down on that one. I'm getting pretty close to getting the Guardian Plus rates for that anyway. Now, one more sad thing I need to mention before I even get into this event. Pull on this banner. Both characters are amazing for their respective elements. Pull on this banner. If you were saving up any type of jewels, tickets, or all that type of stuff, now is a very good time to use them. It's a limited banner, and it's a very good one. However, there's also other very good limited banners that are along the way. There's a lot of them. So, if you really want to try and be optimal, I would say wait for a banner that has elements that you focus on the most. Or simply just wait until a crossover banner pops up, because there's like 3 confirmed crossovers on the way and one's a repeat. But, the next 2 crossovers are brand new, and I don't know if they're coming back. So, there's that. But, anyways, this event, summer event, it's a pretty interesting one too. But it's a raid event, and then whoops, didn't mean to do that. It's a raid event, but also you get like some free stuff from it. The SSR I don't from this. I'll go over that in a second. But there's some very specific mechanics with her. I'll go over the free SR Kamihime as well. I'll go over the heroic. I can't do too much with the normal event because you'll see why later, but and then me personally playing the event, I just blow right through it anyways, but I could still give you some tips on that. But for starters, they interestingly say that if you're a beginner, you should try to get Bow before going into the event. That's if you haven't done anything else. Like if you literally have not done anything else. Because by then you'll definitely have a full team at the very least. Maybe not same element, but you'll still at least have a full team, regardless of what happens. But my suggestion, if you are a beginner, quickly go into Epic Quest, get some stuff from there, then you can come back and do the part of this event. It's a raid event, you can get help from other players. You don't have to do all this on your own. So that would be my personal suggestion. You don't have to clear up till getting Bow, which I think is like the end of the 3rd story quest area. But basically you really want to get your SSR stuff, your SSR weapons, more than trying to get some characters. So Epic Quest, do that, get some stuff for at least one element, the one you want to focus on most, then come into this. Speaking of elements too, dark enemies, but since it's dark, you do not have to do elemental advantage. You're not too much at a disadvantage without it. It's recommended that you do take light for it, but you don't have to. And like I said, there's a heroic, but something I need to point out about heroic, you don't need the recommended combat power. It's just a recommendation. I've cleared some heroics with far less, like 60,000 or so. But you do need the rank. You do need the rank. You won't see it if you're not rank 100. So that's something to know. And they're going to change the requirements later on. So it'll be rank 130, and it'll be a recommendation at 85,000. So that said, it's not for people who can just randomly jump into stuff. If you're going to try heroic, you definitely need to be pretty built up and know what you're doing. All the more reason to pay attention to the heroic part of this video later on, because this one's a cluster of stuff. Now, as for the fights themselves, defense value is 10 for the enemies, so that's standard. They don't have the HP info for all this, but it's pretty much the same stuff, if I remember correctly. Where experts somewhere around like 7 to 8 million, Ragnarok's about 15 to 16 million, and Ragnarok Plus is about 72 million or higher, somewhere around that mark. They generally don't change the HP on these guys. However, there does seem to be more orbs when the lower difficulties, because there's a decrease in orb count when you go from expert to Ragnarok, and I don't know if Ragnarok Plus decreases it further. It probably doesn't. But the big thing about this fight, the boss loves stacking a buff on itself, which you can remove, and Light has a whole bunch of buff removers. So that's going to be very helpful for this. Half HP, it'll probably do a dark attack buff. I've only seen it in Ragnarok Plus because I tend to one-shot the other two. But you definitely need to watch out for the damage it can deal, because the more stacks it has for its self buff, the stronger it gets, and it also gets access to some triggers. So be careful with that. And again, half HP, it puts a dark attribute buff on itself. You probably want to remove that, because the attribute and the attack buffs that enemies get actually are pretty noteworthy. They're at least like 25 to 50% stronger for that. So it's going to offset your debuffs on top of making them hit harder, so you probably do want to get rid of that one. Now, heroic is, as you can see, a list of different stuff, but I can quickly break down all three parts. First and foremost, you are allowed both light and water for this fight. So if you don't use those two elements, your damage is going to get massively reduced, and you're not going to be able to land debuffs, and you're definitely going to need to be able to land debuffs. Now, I will say this right out the gate: if you don't have Paracelsus, then that's fine, but she's easily the best soul for this from what I can tell. Like, they say Yori's the most recommended down bottom, but Paracelsus, in my opinion, has way more use than Yori for this. So there's that. But you do want some more offensive type stuff for this. You still want to survive some things a little bit, but you want to be able to do like some quick offense. Because first stage, the charge count is 5 maximum. You have to do a burst. Like, you have to burst with multiple people. Just unload full burst. When you do that, you reduce the charge count by 2. It's said that you can reduce it by 1 if you get 4 people to do it, but I'm not 100% sure on that. But you want to do full burst anyways. You want to get your burst rate gauges filled up quick as possible. Light is very good at that, so if you have the right characters, you can do that. Like, even some SR among Light are good at doing that. But the thing is, you need to make sure it does not get full orbs. If it gets full orbs and gets a turn, you are going to die. It is a guaranteed 100k to everyone. You're just going to get wiped. And even though you might have sub slots that come in and might finish it, there's no way to run a finish off the rest of the fight, so it's pretty much a loss. Now, stage 2, you get stacked with 10 buffs on you, or debuffs on you, and the thing is, you cannot cleanse these. You can't remove them, can't cleanse them, can't do anything like that. The trick to doing this: land 12 normal attack hits in the turn, and the enemy will take the time to take 1 stack off of everybody. Now, That's where I say Paracelsus is more helpful than Yorimitsu, because Yorimitsu can help you with the first part with burst gauge fill rates and all that. Paracelsus does the same thing to a lesser extent, but she helps a combo rate. So this is why I said Paracelsus is very good. You need high combo rate for stage 2. And high combo rate's already filling up your burst gauges very quickly anyways. But you need to get rid of those, because each stack of those buffs or debuffs, I'm not sure because I haven't done the fight yet. Each stack of those is going to end up putting a damage increase buff. What, you'll take more damage. I don't know if it's a debuff or a buff, but you'll take more damage. Enemy bursts when it's at full orbs is going to be 5 random hits, and they can be very, very strong, especially with the whole stack mechanic. So you may want a Kaiser to help you out with that. If you've gone through stage 1, you've probably built up some Kaiser, like some turns for some Kaiser summons anyways. My suggestion, when it comes to the Kaisers from the Adon Orb shop, I would say to honestly keep them separate, because they're way more useful instead of combining them together. Because you would instead get, like, assuming you can't limit break them at all, you would instead get 2 turns of a 35% elemental attack and a 30%, no, it's a 40% elemental attack, but 2 turns of 40% elemental attack and 2 turns of 30% elemental resist if you combine them. Flip that around to where if you keep them separate, you get 4 turns of 30% to each. And the main reason you're using a Kaiser anyway is for the elemental resistance, so you might as well get more turns out of it. I wouldn't combine them unless you start getting a lot of them. But generally, Kaiser will be very, very good on this one. You need the light Kaiser because you're defending against dark damage. But Kaiser can be very good against that. You probably would need characters that can have a good amount of protection, because there's some elemental resistance characters like Mike and Soul where you can stack them with, say, Athena or Bao. Poseidon can just completely shut off the damage you take if you have her, like the light version of Poseidon. Then Water's also got some helpful ones with defenses like Fabruous, and then believe it or not, the water version of Raphael, there's that as well. But I say Fabruous because of the fact that she puts up a barrier that will stack with a cut. But you need dark resistance or a damage cut for the second fight if you're not careful, so think about that. But if you do the 12 hits in 1 turn, it takes priority, and it says over all other actions, so even at full orbs, I don't think it's going to go off. So you need to get the combo rate going, and that should help you for most of the fight, especially since you're going to start taking less and less damage when you do. Now, third fight. This is completely different. Think of it like the guild competitions, only you're forced to sip and do a specific amount of damage before it's over. How it works, you won't take any damage in this part of the fight. Like stage 3, you won't take any damage at all, so get your HP to full and get your vigor to maximum, because free-to-play players can get vigor from the Haggith raid. You're going to need it. Vigor really helps your damage output, so you're going to need it. But another thing too is that the enemy has an absurd amount of HP. You're not going to kill it. There's no way you're taking down this enemy. Not through normal means. And then it also keeps increasing its defense every single turn. So you really need to lay on the damage as quickly as possible. That's why I say it kind of reminds me of a guild competition. But the gimmick with this part of the fight, every single turn it gets 720 votes. So after 13 turns, if you haven't gotten your 10,000 votes first, you're going to die. It's going to do that whole kill trigger where you just take 100,000 damage, can't be blocked, mitigated, or anything like that, and you're just going to keep spamming it. Now, if your vote count hits 10,000, then she'll just immediately self-destruct and the fight's over and you win. How do you get those votes? You deal damage. The amount of votes you get is based on the damage you deal. You need to average at least 720 votes a turn. So you're really going to need to start dishing out a lot of stuff. Maximum vote you can get in a single turn is 12,000. So it says it's better consistently burst with 3 people than sticking to a full burst. Me personally, I'd say get the damage however you can. Like, whatever works for you. You do not need a healer for this part of the fight, so it's like your biggest thing is just getting debuffs on this enemy to deal as much damage as possible. Get that defense down as low as you can. Get your stuff buffed up. If you're using light, you can possibly get somebody with Stinger in there. So there's that. But the whole thing with this, deal damage, that determines how many votes you get. So in a way, it's kind of got the little raid mechanic where you get the participation points. But it really reminds me of a guild competition. Only you got 13 turns before you die, and you are forced to pretty much clear this. So that's the whole thing with the heroic fight. It's for this reason why I say that Paracelsus is very, very, very good. But Parashurama is also good too. Can also share some BP game with everybody as well. Yorimitsu, there you go. I don't think this is possible to do with Parashurama on her own. There's a lot of people that sit up and say, oh, get Parashurama a very easy win. It's not as easy as you think. It really isn't. There's a lot of mechanics to where it's not going to be a free win just by having her. You need to literally prepare and pay attention. So, Parashurama's good, Paracelsus is good, Yorimitsu's good. Caspar can be pretty good too, that's why I mentioned the Stinger buff. But, Medea may or may not. I'm not fully sure, but she would only really help in stage 3. And she's kind of slow, so that can hamper you in stage 1 and 2, so it's a little risky if you bring her. But, other than that, just get as much damage as you can get out there. Now, I will say this without a doubt, like, I can agree with everybody on this, recommended character list. But the thing is, there's more I need to add to here. So, let's go over each one. Michael. When she's awakened, she's extremely good. Use her. She is made for this fight. She helps in all 3 cases. She gives a double attack increase. She gives direct burst gauge increase. She gives light elemental attack with a dark resist. She's good for this entire fight. She's made for it. Iris, very strong debuff. You might actually need it for a few stages, honestly. Tish, decent debuffing, can help the chances of landing debuffs for everybody else. But her biggest thing is the fact that when she puts a buff on a character, gives them a very good stinger buff, gives them a very good attack buff, gives them a massive amount of triple attack rate. So your really slow characters can get really beefed up with Tish. So that's another thing. Kingu, she would go alongside Athena as well. They both tend to work the same way. If you're really trying to survive that second stage, they can help out with that. Shamash can kind of do that too. It depends. But they suggest Shamash and Wrath because you can eat the orb count. Like, you can't increase the maximum, but you can still eat those orbs away, so that can help you out. Then on top of that too, I also have to mention Bao. They mentioned her here too. Bao has a damage cut. She gets a drain, which kind of doubles as a heal. And the biggest thing is, she gives an AoE triple attack increase. Combined with Michael, you're going to have your combo rate skyrocket. So, that said, it'll be very good for quite a lot of the fight. Others I have to mention, Soul's got like some sort of like debuffing and then some okay healing. She might help you out a little bit for here, but personally I would say go for Ramiel. If you have her Momoka, they're better off because they heal and really increase your offense, which is the main thing about this fight. You need to up your offense. In the case of a few other characters, Anahit can stack with Iris, so you got like maximum defense down with both of them. It's just that Anahit's only like 4 turns, and she's limited. But the thing is, Anahit's candy stacking can also give you a very good barrier. She kind of gives some AoE burst gauge, so you can do that. But the biggest thing is the fact that the more candy she has on everybody, the higher their combo rate. And it's a passive, meaning it's going to always be active. That's a very good thing to have. I can also suggest Lug, but you may have trouble keeping her alive even with Tish in the team. But Lug can lay on some damage. Artemis can lay on some damage and stinger buff somebody. Then on top of that too, another one which is kind of obscure, but can still help you out is Tsukiyomi, the SSR version of her, because she has an elemental debuff. Iris is still better, but Tsukiyomi lands a lot more often. And then on top of that too, she also can nuke dark enemies pretty nicely as well. So that's something to remember. If you really want to go that route, this is probably one of the few times that you can get get some use out of Vishnu, because she fills up burst gauges so very quickly, and then the third part of the fight she's going to be untouched, so she can just really stack in the third part of the fight. So this is probably the one time I would suggest using her if you have nobody else. So she's still behind everybody else suggested, but she can if you can get the third wave with her, she can just unload uninterrupted, and it would be amazing for that. But Shiva's another very good one. Poseidon's another good one, like the light versions of those two. The water versions of those two as well, but the water Poseidon's not going to have too much defenses for you because I think it's fire resistance. So if you're going to use water Poseidon, there you go. The new characters are definitely usable for here too, because Apollo gives you a heal, and then she gives a specific type of pursuit which stacks with the normal pursuit from, like, say, Paracelsus, so you can have like 2 extra hits going off every single attack. Well, not every attack, but every attack that buffs up. Then on top of that too, you do want to have the water version of Hades if you pulled her. Wound is a very powerful debuff. Wound is a very powerful debuff. Use it. And then, like I mentioned, there's also Fabrilis for like the healing and barrier, and she orb eats too. Then on top of that, there's also Raphael, can orb eat, barrier, debuff. There's Phoebe. Phoebe, is hard to pronounce her name. She's very good. She's one of Water's best healers now, and she gives vigor buff along with an attack buff. Fluidity can get some extra damage in pretty nicely. There's Ashraya, if you have awakened her. There's quite a few water characters for that too. In terms of Eidolons, Mana Garmer should be on it regardless of who you use. Put her in your sub slots, if not the main. Combo rate increase. By that logic too, you can probably also use, I think it's Artron, but one of the Guardians do it too. But combo rate increase, very helpful for that. If you are going for any sort of like major damage, definitely try to get a Friend Catastrophe, because summoning them also ups your soft caps. So you really want to try and get some major damage, try to do that. Increasing burst gauges and all that type of stuff too, add-ons are good for that. Light Kaiser, definitely going to be useful here. And then on top of that too, you can use some of the beasts add-on too, the machine beasts, and try and get some extra damage in. There's like a free million, which may be helpful in the third fight, because I think your damage is like massively reduced there. But there's a lot of different stuff you can go about this, but key factors: stage 1, burst often; stage 2, combo often; stage 3, get as much damage as you can. So there you go. Although don't try to full burst in stage 3. Like, just lay off the full burst and just start doing triples for that. Like 3 people bursting back to back. Like, just leave your burst on for stage 3. That way you can just start dealing more consistent damage and start getting more upgrades. Because if you're getting that 12,000 votes, like that 1,200 votes with a burst of 3 characters compared to 5, then there's no point in doing 5. Just save some of your burst for the next turn. But anyway, same usual stuff for the rewards. It's like 300, 300, and all that type of stuff. Now, I don't need to say anything about the event weapon, the SSR weapon. These are always going to be large plus medium at this point for all the raid events. One of the One of the weapons and advents are going to do the same, so I don't need to explain them anymore. They're very good if you don't have better already. And this one's large assault, medium defender. It's going to be very good for quite a while. Honestly, I think it might actually be better than the R gun. That's just my personal opinion. But if you've like found a broken R gun, then it'll probably be better than this weapon. But without final break on the R gun, I think this one actually could be better. It gives you more HP, and it still gives you pretty much just as much as hack power. And then on top of that too, if you happen to put it on your soul, but there's only one soul that can use it, which is Hector, you can put Dizzy on the enemies when Hector bursts. So there you go. Now the Idon is the weird part of this because of the fact that you need to have multiple elements on your team in the front line, not subs, in the front line, in order to get her effect. It is like a smaller version of Diablos Unleashed, and she also gives a burst gauge increase too, so she might actually be helpful for the heroic fight. So you could put her in subs. But the thing with her is the fact that she'll give you a flat HP increase for everybody, period point blank. It's like 20% defender. But when you have 3 or more characters, it's a 40% special attack increase. This may not seem that helpful because you're like splitting up your elements a bit, but if you do something like, say, you have 3 light characters, a dark character, and a wing character, you can still reap the benefits by focusing all of that on your light characters. It will buff them all up. They'll all feel like they're 40% stronger as long as you're not dealing with soft caps too much. So they'll basically feel like they're 40% stronger. You're more or less having like, I would say 4.2 characters out of them, and then the sub characters might actually be worth another one, who knows. It's a lot more worthwhile on a Diablos Unleashed, but this can stack with Diablos Unleashed if you really want to try that. But if you're going to use her, do it that way. Do it with 3 on element, the element you want to focus on, like 3 thunder or 3 water, whatever your 3 is going to be, they need to be the one to focus on for the grid and everything. And get 2 off element that will really help out. Like I'm not sure if wound is going to affect others, but for instance in this fight, I could probably, like if I pulled water Hades, I could probably set up an off element water Hades, then get somebody that can up burst gauges quite a bit too, or like even buff everybody else. Like this is just an example, but you can do something like water Hades, Ozzy, and then get 3 light characters and do Diablos Unleashed. Like that's the type of thing I mean about this. Do that for this setup if you're going to use Diablos Unleashed especially. But if you're going to use this version of Oach, then that's how you're going to have to do it. Only if you put her in main slot. If you put her in sub slot, that's fine. Just get burst gauge from her. But the event missions too. Thunder is the element you need for Ragnarok. I've already cleared it. I've already done my solo runs for this event. I just need to do the heroic. But generally it's not too hard if you've already leveled up your teams and whatnot. 3 are like the Kamihime one is very like it's misleading. Because first off, expert is easy. Expert is very, very easy. And then on top of that, our rarity characters still get a very good boost from the grid. Their only downside is the fact that they have less abilities and less burst damage. But other than that, they're more or less the same as other characters. And then, again, like I said, this event, Paracelsus is going to be very, very helpful for the heroic. You may need some buff removal for the normal fights like Ragnarok Plus, but generally you want to you really want to try and lay on the damage because you don't need too much protection if at all. So that's the thing. You don't need much protection if at all. Now then, this is your free SR character. Another version of Zephyrus who's like SR for once. She also kind of counts as a healer too, so she could actually help out. But generally she's got this little watermelon type mechanic or whatever, which makes her kind of stand out among the SR. She may even be on par with like a low budget SSR. But she gives like burst gauge increase from the watermelons. Then on top of that too, she also heals you. And if you use her second ability, it will erase all the watermelon she stacked up, but she'll also give pretty much a whole bunch of buffs. So that's something to know about this. Bursting with her also creates a watermelon, like almost all her actions do it. Yeah, you get a burst gauge increase and create a watermelon. You can also create a watermelon if her HP is at 80% or more. Generally, you want to stack up a whole bunch of watermelons and then set up and unload them for her buff. But it's kind of like a mini version of how you would use some other characters too. I know I mentioned Anna Head, she's kind of got the same type of mechanic. Poseidon as well, the light version at least. I don't know about Wind or Water. There's a few characters that have that sort of mechanic. Fluidity kind of has something like that too. So yeah, that's the main thing. And if you are healing with her, it's going to be 1200 HP. And then on top of that, the different buffs that you get based on the watermelon count. 0 to 3 will give you a regen. If you get 4 or 5, you also get an attack buff. 6 to 7, you also get a double attack buff. 8 to 9, you also get a triple attack buff. Well, no, 6 to 7 is a double attack and a triple attack. 8 to 9 is a burst gauge increase buff. And 10 is a stinger buff. So, all of that, if you manage to get 10, you get a whopping amount of effects, like a massive across the board. So, that said, she's best for sitting up, taking your time to build up on that. And I get the feeling you're probably going to end up using her for Tower if you get her from this event. So, that's something to know. So, since you're probably going to use some SR characters in Tower, she can heal you, she can stack up some stuff and all that. I can see her being pretty good for some of the lower floors, like floor 14 or so. And I say the lower because they really are. Once you get 16 plus, that's when things start getting a little bit hairy. But, she's not too bad. She's really not too bad. But, anyways, that's all for this. Bit of a long video, tried to cover so much stuff, especially the Heroic. The Heroic is gimmicky as crap. And I will say, without a doubt, try to get Vigor weapons if you want to take on the Heroic. Go to Haggith and fight her for the Vigor staff. It will even give you more HP and healing. But definitely try to mix in some of those with your other weapons. So there's that. Because it is more worthwhile to have Vigor with Assault than just have, say, straight Assault. Like, it literally is better that way. But, anyways, that's all for this. More of this will come soon. And again, Paracelsus, very, very good. Use her if you have her. She's like made for this Heroic. But anyways, that's all for now, guys. More will come soon, and take care.